Perfect. All right, I just got the notification the recording has started. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name's Connor Corbett. I'm a forester and wildfire kind of specialist from Diamond Head Consulting. And me and my colleague Camille, who's a urban planner, have been working with the team from the Municipality of North Cowichan on this wildfire development permit area for the past almost a year now. And so from the municipality, we have Rob Conway, Sean Mason, and Patricia Taylor. So I think between the five of us, we'll be able to answer any of the questions that come up once I complete this presentation. And just to let everybody know, it's about 15 minutes and there'll be lots of time for us to have questions because I think we're booked until 8:30. So happy to answer any questions or comments once we finish this presentation. So I'd like to just jump right in. And so we're kind of building off some work that was kind of, the stage was set in 2020 with a Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which was created for the municipality of North Cowichan by the Diamond Head team. And the municipality is kind of building off this plan, which assessed wildfire risk kind of at a zoomed out layer or zoomed out level for the whole municipality. And the whole purpose of this plan is to assess and reduce wildfire risk to the community where possible. And it included a host of recommendations. There's 32 of them included in this document, and several of those recommendations are being implemented this year. And so there's three sort of main projects that are kind of separate but related, and those are critical infrastructure fire smart assessments. So that's assessing the vulnerability of really important infrastructure for the functioning of the community. There's fuel management prescriptions. There's three of those for three different areas, which are ways to reduce wildfire risk for specific areas that the municipality manages. And then there's the wildfire development permit area, which is going to be the focus of today's presentation and discussion. And kind of overarching all three of these projects is a communications and public engagement plan to make sure that the public is engaged and educated and knows what's happening throughout these projects. We've had quite a few presentations and open houses, and then we have a interactive website set up on the North Cowichan hosted on the North Cowichan website, and there'll be a link to that on the final slide, so you can refer to that to more information. And if you've missed any of these presentations, they're all recorded and they're all available on that website. But specific to the wildfire development permit area, there was a workshop held in November 2021 where we kind of engaged with people who are going to be working with the wildfire development permit area on a regular basis, just to get some thoughts and ideas and suggestions that we could integrate into the new project. So looking back at the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, this plan identified significant areas of high and extreme wildfire risk on the public land in the municipality. And the municipality is kind of taking on leadership for reducing and managing wildfire risk on the areas that they can. So that includes these fuel management prescriptions that I just mentioned and those fire smart assessments. And in addition to that, we've developing this wildfire development permit area to address wildfire risk on private land, which is adjacent moderate, higher extreme risk forests. And the reason we've kind of, the wildfire development permit area is kind of selected is it's a key tool for local governments for integrating wildfire risk into development and management on private land. These development permit areas are very common in wildfire prone communities in BC, and they're becoming more and more common over the last couple of years as we kind of begin to experience more interface fire and more severe fires. And so the development permit area adds additional guidelines for development in areas that are high risk or adjacent to high risk areas. And the central idea is that by having these high risk areas developed in a way that's resilient to wildfire, the community as a whole benefits in addition to those individual properties. By creating an interface layer that's kind of hardened off and resilient to wildfire, it reduces the likelihood of a wildfire kind of getting into the community and becoming an interface fire. And for every wildfire development permit area, there's two key components. The first is the area where these guidelines will apply, and the second is what those guidelines will be. And this isn't a totally new thing for the municipality of North Cowichan. There currently is a development permit area for hazard lands, and this is embedded in the zoning bylaw, and this includes fire hazard. And this has been around for quite a while now, or a little while now, depending on your perspective. And it's kind of we're kind of updating this and improving what already exists. It's based on some older mapping from over a decade ago, And it's based on guidelines that could be improved with a new understanding of kind of wildfire risk and how we can develop in a resilient way in the interface. And so this draft DPA we're talking about today is kind of an update to the previous, and trying to fix some of the things that maybe weren't working as well, and also to integrate new understandings of wildfire risk and development, and also to update the mapping so that we're applying this in the appropriate areas. And part of our November workshop was kind of understanding how this wildfire DP has been implemented from the perspective of people who are applying for these permits and are developing in the interface. And we heard a number of really great suggestions and really great feedback, but I think one of the key things we heard is in bold here, and it's that the process could be streamlined a little bit, and specifically avoiding having to put these development permits in front of council was something that came up quite frequently. And so talking about the new or the updated wildfire development permit area, I've kind of divided the discussion into where these new guidelines will apply, or where the updated guidelines will apply, what are the updated guidelines and when they'll be applied, and finally, how is this whole process going to be implemented and shake out moving forward. And so where on the left you see, this is the old fire hazard mapping for the current wildfire DP. And on the right is the updated mapping that we've worked with the municipal staff to develop. And I think from a zoomed out perspective, you can see the maps aren't overly different. It's kind of been refined in a lot of ways. And one of the main reasons they're not that different is because a lot of the forested areas that were present when this original map was developed remain forested, and they remain in the same locations. And the interface in many of the areas hasn't changed significantly. The areas that have changed are areas that have been impacted by development, where the interface has kind of shifted closer towards the forest, or where new development has occurred that has created new lots and new small lots, or areas where land has been cleared. And one thing to keep in mind is that although this does look like a very significant amount of area, a vast majority of the area is within either municipal forest reserve land or privately forested managed land. So these are areas where development is not really expected to occur to a significant degree. And when will these guidelines be applied, or what are we recommending for when these guidelines be applied? Well, first of all, it's for new buildings, expansion of buildings, like significant expansions of buildings, and for subdivision of land. And to kind of streamline the process, make the process smoother, we've kind of divided it into two streams. And the first is subdivision, which requires a wildfire hazard report, which is essentially a report prepared by a qualified wildfire professional, kind of integrating the wildfire guidelines into the subdivision plan. And the building applications require, instead of a wildfire hazard report, to streamline the process and require and make it not so burdensome on like landowners or homeowners who just want to build a home. In these, we're recommending a notarized statement from a property owner committing to completing the development in accordance with the wildfire DP guidelines. And one thing to keep in mind is that if there is, for some reason, the guidelines aren't being complied with, there is an option for people applying for building permits to get a wildfire hazard report. So that introduces a little bit of flexibility into the process for building permits. And we've also included a bunch of exemptions. A lot of these are already included in the current wildfire DP. They might have just been changed a little bit or expanded or clarified. I think one of the more interesting additions is the final point you see there so it's construction of buildings greater than 100 meters from the nearest forest edge. So this is kind of for subdivision applications for large properties where some of the building lots will be quite far away from the forested edge once the subdivision is completed. And sort of these next two slides are just really high level discussion of some of the maybe more interesting guidelines that have been included in the updated draft wildfire DP. These have been updated based on the best current management practices from FireSmart BC, FireSmart Canada, which are kind of the key resources for development in wildfire prone communities. And we've also looked at what's being done in other similar jurisdictions to the municipality of North Cowichan. So two of the things we've highlighted here is at the subdivision stage is introducing setbacks from hazardous fuels, and then also including requirements for ongoing maintenance of forest edges, with the use of covenants on title. And the idea here is that when we create the subdivisions, we start off with the appropriate conditions for reducing wildfire risk. And we're also creating a structure so that maintenance occurs to ensure that that continues post-development. And then this slide is some of the guidelines that we've included for the building permit applications. And these are all really typical FireSmart Canada, FireSmart BC recommendations for FireSmart construction in the interface. So it includes lots of different construction material requirements and also lots of landscaping requirements. So the next step is, how will the DP be implemented? And so this is kind of more of the process focused aspect of the development permit. So one of our key recommendations that we've integrated from our workshops is having council delegate authority for development permit to the Director of Planning and Building. And so this is to avoid having every development permit go in front of council and have a more streamlined process. We've also recommended developing some supporting materials, including a guide for development permit applications. For a lot of homeowners, these development permits can seem really burdensome and complicated and a bit of a sort of different language, so to speak, than what people are really used to if you're not used to development or building permit applications. So we want to create sort of a simplified materials to really walk people through the process. And then the final thing that we've also recommended is providing some additional educational materials for FireSmart development or wildfire risk management in the interface and where this development permit will apply. And then finally, kind of looking forward to how this updated DP will be integrated into bylaw. Currently, it's in draft form and it's going to remain in draft form. And the adoption is recommended when the next zoning bylaw update occurs later in 2022, as that kind of comes up with the rest of the municipal planning initiatives. And so that's kind of the quick overview of our development permit work. I've included this slide. It's our interactive website and North Cowichan's website, northcowichan.ca/wildfire. This has a bunch of information on all the different wildfire projects we're working on, FireSmart assessments, this wildfire DP, fuel management prescriptions, and this website is updated continually. And if you've missed any of our other presentations, they've also been recorded and they're posted up here. And of course, if you have any questions that you've forget about task tonight, you're always welcome to reach out. There is a way to ask questions and an email listed on the North Cowichan website I've listed here. And I guess I can wrap things up here and turn it over to you, Camille, and we can start with some questions. I think Camille is having some technical difficulties here. Camille, can you hear us there? All right, I guess we can wait for Camille to join, but in the meantime, I can kind of turn it over to the floor and see if anyone else has questions they'd like to ask.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, please, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Sansom. I'm an independent land development consultant, but I've also got a municipal background. I actually worked on a wildfire interface bylaw in the city of Langford in the early 2000s. So pretty familiar with the steps, and also engaged foresters on many occasions to do those reports for my clients. So my question is ongoing maintenance of the interface areas. The building materials is one thing, but how do you monitor and ensure that owners are going to keep their interface setbacks clean of fuel on a permanent basis? It's kind of cumbersome. You can't expect staff to go out and look at that. So I'm just wondering what the follow-up might be on that. If it's not a covenant title, it's even harder to enforce.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that's one that we struggle with ourselves. We are in a similar position to yourself. We do complete a lot of these wildfire development permits, and it's kind of a known weak point, especially for building permits, that you kind of have one snapshot in time of the property, and that's kind of it for sometimes decades. And so, but on the other hand, introducing covenants onto title for things like landscape maintenance on single lots can be unnecessarily burdensome. So I think in terms of compliance and enforcement,